The suitcase was heavier than the sign promised. Jake Russo stared at the faded lettering above the elevator door, out of order, for the third time this month. He shifted his weight, adjusting his hold on the navy blue Samsonite that the woman in 3B had asked him to carry up. "No problem," he'd said with an automatic smile when she'd asked, even though his back ached from his double shift at the construction site. Being the superintendent of this run-down apartment building wasn't glamorous, but the free rent meant everything when you were raising an 8-year-old daughter on a single income. "Dad, are we going up the stairs again?" Emma's voice was small but resigned, her hand slipping into his free one. "Just like mountain climbers, kiddo." Jake gave her fingers a gentle squeeze. "Race you to the second floor," the woman behind them cleared her throat. "I can take it from here if it's too much trouble." Jake turned, getting his first proper look at her. The hallway's fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows, but they couldn't dim the sharp intelligence in her eyes or the elegant cut of her coat, clearly expensive, clearly out of place in this building where most residents counted pennies at the end of each month. "No trouble at all," Jake replied, noting how she stood perfectly straight as if the weight of the world couldn't bend her spine. "I'm the super, Jake Russo. This is my daughter Emma, Charlotte Owens," the woman replied, extending a slender hand, "just passing through for a few nights." "My cousin lives in 3B, Emma peered up at Charlotte. "Your suitcase is really heavy." Charlotte's professional smile softened into something more genuine. "I never learned to pack light, a terrible habit." "Second floor, here we come," Jake said, hoisting the suitcase with renewed determination. He wasn't about to let this well-dressed stranger think he couldn't handle a simple piece of luggage. By the time they reached the third floor, Jake's forearm muscles burned with the effort. The suitcase seemed to gain 10 pounds with each step, but he maintained his easy smile. Years of hiding financial struggles from Emma had made him an expert at masking discomfort. "How long are you staying?" Emma asked Charlotte as they approached 3B. "Just until my hotel situation gets sorted out," Charlotte replied, removing a set of keys from her purse. "Water damage in my suite, apparently." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Suite, must be nice." "It's for work," Charlotte clarified quickly, a flicker of something embarrassment crossing her face. "I travel a lot." "What do you do?" Emma asked, leaning against the wall. Jake gently nudged her. "Emma, remember our talk about 20 questions?" Charlotte laughed, the sound unexpectedly warm in the dingy hallway. "I don't mind, I'm in business development." She unlocked the door and pushed it open. "Thank you for your help, Mr. Russo." "Jake," he corrected, setting the suitcase just inside the doorway. "And it's part of the job. Not carrying luggage for temporary guests, I'm sure." Charlotte reached into her purse. Jake instantly recognized the gesture and held up his hand. "No tips necessary. Just let me know if you need anything while you're here." Charlotte seemed surprised, her hand pausing midway to her wallet. "Of course, thank you." "Come on, Dad," Emma tugged at his sleeve. "We still need to make dinner." Jake nodded, giving Charlotte one last smile. "Welcome to the building." "It's not much, but it's home." Something in Charlotte's expression softened. "Sometimes that's all that matters." As they walked away, Emma whispered too loudly, "Dad, did you see her shoes? They're so pretty," Jake chuckled, tousling his daughter's hair. "Yes, they were." "Now, what should we have for dinner, Chef Emma?" He didn't look back, didn't notice Charlotte watching them from the doorway, her eyes lingering on the broad shoulders of the man who'd carried her suitcase without complaint, the gentle way he spoke to his daughter, the pride that straightened his back despite his obvious exhaustion. Back in their apartment on the first floor, Jake stirred the pot of macaroni and cheese, Emma's Tuesday night favorite, while his daughter set the table with their mismatched plates. "Is your homework finished?" he asked, adding a handful of frozen peas to the pasta for at least some nutritional value. "Almost. I have to make a poster about what I want to be when I grow up," Emma replied, carefully placing forks beside each plate. "And what's that this week? Last month it was astronaut veterinarian, right?" Emma rolled her eyes in that distinctly preteen way she'd recently developed. "Dad, that was ages ago. Now I want to be like that lady with the fancy suitcase. She looks important." Jake smiled but felt the familiar twist of inadequacy in his gut. "Miss Owens, we just met her, kiddo." "But did you see how she stood?" like nobody could tell her what to do. Emma straightened her shoulders in imitation, and her watch was so shiny. Jake served the macaroni, making sure Emma got the bigger portion. There are lots of ways to be important that don't involve expensive watches. I know, Emma said seriously. Like how you fix everything for everybody, that's important too. The simple observation from his daughter eased something inside Jake. That's right, now eat up before it gets cold. Later that night, after Emma was tucked in bed with her well-worn stuffed rabbit, Jake sat at the kitchen table with a stack of bills and his checkbook. The numbers didn't add up, they never did, but he'd become an expert at robbing Peter to pay Paul. This month's challenge: Emma needed new winter boots, but the electric bill was higher than expected. A soft knock at the door pulled him from his calculations. Frowning, Jake checked his watch. Nearly 10 p.m., too late for casual visitors. When he opened the door, Charlotte Owens stood in the hallway, now dressed in soft-looking loungewear, though somehow she still radiated the same polished authority. "I'm sorry to bother you so late," she said, looking genuinely apologetic. "The sink in 3B is leaking." "My cousin mentioned you're the one to call." Jake nodded, grabbing his tool belt from its hook by the door. "Let me just check on Emma and I'll be right up." Charlotte's eyes softened. "She's asleep. I feel terrible interrupting your evening." "Part of the job," Jake replied with a shrug. "Give me 2 minutes." After confirming Emma was still sound asleep, Jake followed Charlotte up the 2 flights of stairs, trying not to notice the subtle floral scent of her shampoo or the way she moved with such natural grace. In the apartment, Jake found the leak quickly, a loose connection under the sink that took just minutes to tighten. As he worked, he noticed Charlotte watching him with curious interest. "You're very efficient," she observed. Jake slid out from under the sink. "When you're on call 24/7 for a building with plumbing from the Stone Age, you learn to work fast." "Your daughter seems wonderful," Charlotte said, leaning against the counter. "How old is she?" 8 going on 30, Jake replied, packing up his tools. "It's just the 2 of us." "Has been since she was 3. That must be challenging." Jake hesitated, not used to discussing his personal situation with strangers, especially not well-dressed, clearly successful strangers who probably couldn't imagine the constant financial tightrope he walked. "We make it work," he finally said. "Emma's worth every minute." Charlotte nodded, a shadow crossing her face. "My parents both worked constantly when I was growing up. Nice house, nice things, but they were never around. What you're doing, being present, that matters." The unexpected vulnerability in her voice caught Jake off guard. "Thanks. Some days I'm not sure I'm doing enough." "Based on what I've seen, you're doing plenty," Charlotte said firmly. "Thank you for fixing the sink." "Anytime. That's what I'm here for." Jake headed for the door, suddenly aware of how tired he was, how his jeans had a small tear at the knee, how different their lives must be. "Jake," Charlotte called as he stepped into the hallway. "I meant to ask, is there a decent coffee shop nearby for morning?" "Riley's 2 blocks east," Jake replied. "Nothing fancy, but the coffee's good and the muffins are better." Charlotte smiled, the expression transforming her face. Sometimes that's all that matters. Jake thought about that smile as he walked down the stairs, about the way it had cracked through her professional veneer, revealing something warmer underneath. But he pushed the thought away as quickly as it came. Women like Charlotte Owens didn't notice men who carried their luggage for a living. The next morning, as Jake rushed Emma to school before heading to his construction job, he spotted Charlotte entering Riley's coffee shop. She wore a sleek pantsuit that probably cost more than his monthly salary, hair pulled back in a professional twist. He hesitated, considering whether to say hello, but Emma was already running late for the school bell. "Dad, come on." Emma tugged at his hand, and the moment passed. Jake's day at the construction site was long and physically demanding. By the time he picked Emma up from after-school care, handled 3 maintenance calls in the building, and started dinner, he'd almost forgotten about their elegant temporary neighbor until another knock came at the door. This time, Charlotte held a paper bag from Riley's. "I hope I'm not interrupting again," she said, looking slightly less polished than she had that morning, as if the day had worn on her too. "Not at all," Jake replied, surprised. "Everything okay with the sink? Perfect. I actually..." She hesitated, then held up the bag. I wanted to thank you properly for yesterday. I got some of those muffins you mentioned. From behind him, Emma's voice piped up. Are those the chocolate ones? Those are the best. Charlotte smiled at Emma. They are indeed. I wasn't sure which kind to get, so there's a variety. Jake found himself stepping back. Would you like to come in? We were just about to have dinner. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti, but there's plenty. The invitation surprised even him. Their apartment was small, furnished with second-hand pieces and lacking the sophistication that surely characterized Charlotte's usual surroundings. Charlotte hesitated, and Jake immediately regretted the offer. Sorry, you probably have plans or work. Actually, she interrupted. I'd love to. If you're sure it's not an imposition. And just like that, Charlotte Owens stepped into their modest apartment, bringing with her that subtle floral scent and an unexpected warmth that seemed to fill the small space. Emma immediately launched into tour guide mode. This is our living room and kitchen. It's all one room, really. Dad says it's open concept, which means we saved money on walls. Jake cringed slightly at his daughter's candor, but Charlotte laughed a real laugh, not the polite kind. Very efficient, she noted, following Emma's enthusiastic gestures. I like your drawings on the refrigerator. Dad puts up all my best ones, Emma explained seriously. He says the fridge is our family gallery. Charlotte's eyes met Jake's over Emma's head, and something passed between them, a quiet acknowledgement, perhaps, of the richness that existed in their small home despite its humble appearance. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Charlotte asked Emma about school and listened with genuine interest to her detailed explanation of the current classroom drama involving friendship bracelets. Jake found himself relaxing, appreciating the easy way Charlotte engaged with his daughter without condescension. What about you? Jake asked as he served second helpings of spaghetti. You said you travel a lot for work. Charlotte twirled pasta on her fork. Too much, probably. I'm the CEO of Meridian Innovations. We develop sustainable technology solutions for businesses. Jake nearly dropped the serving spoon. CEO, wow. That's impressive. Emma looked between them. What's a CEO? It means I'm in charge of the whole company, Charlotte explained. Like Dad is in charge of fixing everything in the building. Charlotte's smile was warm. Exactly like that, except Dad's job is much more hands-on. I mostly attend meetings and make decisions. And carry very heavy suitcases, Jake added with a teasing grin. Charlotte laughed. The eternal struggle of the overpacker. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Charlotte her room, the smallest bedroom Jake had ever seen, but filled with color and personality thanks to Emma's artwork and the string lights they'd hung together. It's perfect, Charlotte said sincerely, examining a particularly detailed drawing of what appeared to be a unicorn piloting a rocket ship. Later, after Emma went to bed, Jake and Charlotte sat in the living room with coffee and the Riley's muffins. Thank you for dinner, Charlotte said. It was the best meal I've had in weeks. Jake raised an eyebrow. Now I know you're just being polite. Aren't CEOs supposed to eat at fancy restaurants every night? You'd be surprised how many meals I eat alone in hotel rooms while reviewing spreadsheets, Charlotte replied, a touch of something like loneliness in her voice. This was real. Jake studied her, seeing beyond the designer clothes and confident demeanor to the woman underneath, someone who perhaps had everything and nothing all at once. Why are you really staying in this building? He asked suddenly. No offense, but I'm guessing your company could afford better accommodations than my cousin's couch while your hotel gets fixed. Charlotte looked startled, then smiled ruefully. You caught me. The water damage story is true, but… She hesitated. I grew up in this neighborhood. In this building, actually. Apartment 4A. My parents moved us out when I was 12 after my dad got a big promotion. Jake leaned back, surprised. So this is what a trip down memory lane, something like that. Charlotte stared into her coffee cup. When my hotel room flooded, I could have gone anywhere. But I remembered this place, and my cousin Tina offered her apartment while she's away, and I just wanted to remember what it felt like before everything got so complicated. The confession hung between them, honest and unexpected. Jake found himself seeing Charlotte differently, not as an untouchable CEO, but as someone searching for something genuine in a world that perhaps rarely offered it. And, does it feel the same? Jake asked quietly. Charlotte looked around the modest apartment, her eyes finally settling on Jake. No, it feels better. When Charlotte left that night, something had shifted between them, a connection formed over spaghetti and childhood memories, over the shared understanding that worth wasn't measured in square footage or salary digits. Over the next week, Charlotte became a regular presence in their lives. She joined them for dinner most evenings, bringing dessert or wine for the adults. She helped Emma with her science project, showing a patience and enthusiasm that delighted Jake's daughter. On Thursday, when Jake had to work late at the construction site, Charlotte volunteered to pick Emma up from after-school care and watch her until he returned. He'd hesitated, not used to accepting help, but Charlotte had insisted. "I have a conference call at 4, but I can take it from your apartment while Emma does her homework. Really, it's no trouble." When Jake returned home that night, he found them at the kitchen table, Charlotte's laptop open beside Emma's math workbook, both of them concentrating intently. "The area of a circle is pi squared," Charlotte was explaining, "so if the radius is 5 centimeters. 25 pi, Emma exclaimed triumphantly. "Exactly right," Charlotte high-fived her, then looked up as Jake entered. "We're calculating the area of giant cookies." "Makes math more interesting," Jake observed, hanging up his jacket. "Thanks for doing this." Charlotte waved away his gratitude. "We had fun, didn't we, Emma?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Charlotte showed me pictures of her company's solar panels that look like regular roofs. And she ordered pizza with pineapple even though she doesn't like pineapple because I said it's my favorite." Jake's eyes met Charlotte's over his daughter's head. "Sounds like you two had a good time." Something warm flickered in Charlotte's expression. "The best." Later that night, after Emma was in bed, Charlotte helped Jake wash the dishes, a domestic scene so ordinary yet so unexpected given who she was. "When do you head back to your real life?" Jake asked, passing her a plate to dry, Charlotte's hands stilled on the dishcloth. "Sunday. The hotel called, my suite is ready, and I have meetings in Chicago next week." Jake nodded, ignoring the hollow feeling in his chest. "Emma's going to miss you." Charlotte placed the dried plate on the counter carefully. "Just Emma?" The question hung between them, loaded with possibility. Jake turned off the faucet, drying his hands slowly. "No," he admitted quietly. "Not just Emma." Charlotte stepped closer, close enough that he could smell that now familiar floral scent. "I've been thinking about something. My company is opening a new headquarters downtown. We'll need a facilities manager, someone who understands buildings inside and out, who can oversee maintenance, renovations, security systems." Jake frowned. "Are you offering me a job? It would pay significantly more than what you're making now," Charlotte continued. "Health insurance, retirement plan, regular hours. You could stop working the construction job." Jake took a step back, his pride bristling. "I don't need charity, Charlotte. This isn't charity," she said firmly. "This is business. I need someone with practical experience who can think on their feet and solve problems efficiently. I've watched you all week. You're exactly what we need. And it has nothing to do with." Jake gestured between them, not quite able to name the growing attraction they both felt. Charlotte's expression softened. "It has everything to do with your qualifications and nothing to do with the fact that I can't stop thinking about you. Those are separate issues." The honest admission caught Jake off guard. For years, he'd focused solely on survival, on keeping the lights on, food on the table, and Emma happy. The idea that someone like Charlotte could see him, truly see him, seemed almost impossible. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "Say you'll think about it," Charlotte replied. "The job offer stands regardless of anything else between us. I respect you too much to blur those lines." Jake studied her face, searching for any hint of pity or condescension, finding only sincerity. "I'll think about it." On Friday evening, Jake took a rare night off from building maintenance. Charlotte suggested they take Emma to the outdoor movie screening in the park, a community event featuring an animated film and food trucks. As Emma ran ahead to secure them spots on the grass, Charlotte slipped her hand into Jake's. The simple gesture felt monumental. "Is this okay?" she asked quietly. Jake intertwined their fingers more securely in response. "More than okay." They spread blankets on the grass, bought hot dogs from a vendor, and watched as Emma made instant friends with nearby children. Under the darkening sky, with distant city lights twinkling around them, Jake found himself relaxing into the moment. "Tell me something real," he said to Charlotte as they sat side by side, shoulders touching. "Something not in your company biography." Charlotte considered the question, her profile illuminated by the movie screen's glow. "I'm lonely most of the time," she finally said. "I have assistants and board members and business partners, but no one who knows me beyond my job title." "Until this week, I'd forgotten what it feels like to just be Charlotte." Jake nodded, understanding completely. "For me, it's the opposite problem. I'm always just Jake Dad Handyman, the guy who fixes things. Sometimes I wonder if there's anything else to me." "There's so much more," Charlotte said softly, turning to face him. "I've seen it every day." When her lips met his, the kiss felt like coming home, gentle and right and perfectly timed under the canopy of stars. Emma, thankfully engrossed in the movie and her new friends, didn't notice. Saturday brought a perfect autumn day. Charlotte convinced Jake to call in a favor from another maintenance worker to cover the building for the day. "One day off won't bring the place crumbling down," she argued. They took Emma to the Natural History Museum, Charlotte's treat, though Jake insisted on packing their lunch to balance the expense. Watching his daughter's eyes widen at the massive dinosaur skeletons, seeing Charlotte kneel beside Emma to read exhibit descriptions together, Jake felt a sense of rightness he couldn't explain. "Dad, Charlotte says this dinosaur is a distant relative of chickens." Emma called, pointing excitedly at a velociraptor display. "Is that why they taste the same?" Jake asked with a straight face, making both Emma and Charlotte burst into laughter. As they wandered through the museum halls, Charlotte's hand found his again, as naturally as if they'd been doing this for years instead of days. And when Emma ran ahead to the interactive exhibits, Charlotte turned to him with serious eyes. "I know this is happening fast," she said quietly. "Too fast, maybe, but I want you to know this isn't just some weird vacation fling for me, meeting you and Emma, spending time with you both. It's made me realize what's been missing from my life." Jake squeezed her hand. "For the record, CEOs aren't usually part of my dating pool." "Former residents of 4A are, though," Charlotte teased. "Exactly. That's my type, specifically women who grew up in apartment 4A of my building. Very niche dating preference." Charlotte laughed, then grew serious again. "Have you thought about the job?" Jake nodded slowly. "I have. And I appreciate the offer, truly, but I need to know it's legitimate that you'd want me for the position even if there wasn't this." He gestured between them. "Absolutely," Charlotte said firmly. "I meant what I said about keeping things separate. The job is yours if you want it, regardless of anything else." "Then yes," Jake decided. "I want it for Emma, for our future, but I'll earn every penny." "I know you will," Charlotte replied, her eyes shining. That evening, after they put an exhausted Emma to bed, Charlotte and Jake sat on the small balcony off his apartment, sharing a bottle of wine Charlotte had brought back from the store. "So," Jake said, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, "what happens tomorrow when you go back to your real life? When you're the CEO again and I'm just starting at your company?" Charlotte took his hand. "First of all, you were never just anything. And second, I'm always the CEO that doesn't change whether I'm in a boardroom or helping Emma with her math homework." "You know what I mean," Jake pressed. "Our worlds are different." "They were," Charlotte agreed, "but they don't have to stay that way." "I don't want to be your charity project," Jake said firmly, "or your walk on the wild side." Charlotte's eyes flashed. "Is that what you think this is? That I'm slumming it for a week before returning to my ivory tower?" "No," Jake admitted after a moment. "That's not who you are." "I've seen enough to know better." "Good," Charlotte softened. "Because I'm falling in love with you, Jake Russo, with your integrity, your devotion to Emma, the way you carry more than just suitcases without complaint. And that has nothing to do with what either of us does for a living." The declaration hung in the night air, honest and vulnerable. Jake studied her face in the dim balcony light, seeing the woman who'd shared their simple dinners, who'd listened to Emma's stories with genuine interest, who'd kissed him under the stars without reservation. "I'm falling in love with you too," he admitted, "even though it scares the hell out of me." Charlotte smiled. "Good things often do." When Sunday morning arrived, Jake helped Charlotte carry her suitcase back down the stairs just as heavy as it had been going up, but somehow the weight felt different now. "You don't have to go back to the hotel," Jake said as they reached the building entrance. "You could stay with us." Charlotte's eyes widened. "Are you sure? It's only been a week." "Sometimes a week is enough to know," Jake replied simply. From beside them, Emma looked up hopefully. "Please stay, Charlotte. Dad makes really good pancakes on Sundays." Charlotte knelt down to Emma's level. "What if I stay for pancakes today, go back to my hotel tonight to prepare for my work week, but come visit you both for dinner tomorrow?" Emma considered this compromise. "And Tuesday too," Charlotte promised. "And many more days after that, if you and your dad are okay with it." Emma looked to Jake, who nodded with a smile. "I think we can handle that arrangement." 6 months later, Jake stood in the facilities management office of Meridian Innovations' new headquarters, surveying the building systems on multiple monitors. His team of maintenance workers had just completed their morning briefing, and the building hummed with efficient energy much like his life these days. The job had been everything Charlotte promised: challenging, well compensated, respectful of his expertise. Emma was thriving in her new school, making friends and excelling academically with the help of Charlotte's patient tutoring. And Charlotte had become the center of their world, bringing joy and stability in equal measure. She still traveled for business, but never for more than a few days at a time. She'd rearranged her entire work schedule to be home for dinner most nights, to attend Emma's school events, to build a life with them that balanced ambition with connection. A knock at his office door pulled Jake from his thoughts. Charlotte stood in the doorway, elegant as always in her business attire, but with the warm smile she reserved just for him. "Ready for lunch?" she asked. Jake checked his watch. "Already noon. Where does the time go?" "It flies when you're efficiently managing a state-of-the-art facility," Charlotte teased, entering his office. "Emma's class is having their science fair presentations today at 1. I thought we could grab a quick lunch and then surprise her." Jake stood, gathering his jacket. "Have I mentioned lately that I love you?" "This morning, but I never tire of hearing it." Charlotte reached for his hand. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous," Jake commented with a smile. "Very funny. I've been thinking about our lease. It's up next month." Jake nodded. They'd moved from his superintendent apartment to a larger 2-bedroom closer to Emma's new school, a place they could actually afford with his improved salary. "I was wondering if maybe we should look at houses instead of renewing," Charlotte continued carefully. "Something with a yard, maybe." "Room to grow." Jake studied her face, noting the slight nervousness in her expression. "Room to grow? Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Charlotte's smile widened. "Emma mentioned recently that she's always wanted a sibling. And I thought, well, perhaps we should consider making that possible, if you're open to the idea." Jake pulled her close, his heart full to bursting. "I'm very open to the idea, but traditionally there are certain steps that come first." "Like what?" Charlotte asked innocently, though her eyes danced with mischief. Jake reached into his pocket, pulling out the small velvet box he'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. "Like this." Charlotte's eyes widened as he opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant engagement ring, not the most expensive he could afford now, but the most meaningful he could find. Charlotte Owens, CEO extraordinaire and the woman who fell in love with a guy carrying her ridiculously heavy suitcase, Jake began, dropping to one knee right there in his office. "Will you marry me?" Charlotte's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes." As Jake slipped the ring onto her finger, he thought about that first day, the broken elevator, the heavy suitcase, the unexpected guest who had changed everything. Sometimes the heaviest burdens led to the greatest joys. "I love you," Charlotte said, pulling him to his feet and into a kiss. "I love you too," Jake replied against her lips. "Now let's go surprise our daughter with the news that her family is about to grow." Hand in hand, they walked through the building Jake now managed, toward a future they would build together, one that had started with a simple act of kindness on a flight of stairs, proving that sometimes the most unexpected journeys led exactly where you were meant to be.